Welcome into the Blurred Wire. Today, there hasn't been a whole lot of movies that we've been like really interested in lately. Because we just did Deadpool and Wolverine, of course.
hmm
So we're kind of taking it back because I think this project either came out when we had first started doing our podcast together or maybe just after. But with Borderlands in theaters right now doing terribly
So
critically
bad.
and commercially. So bad. Like we'll get into the numbers towards the end of how bad it is. We
hmm
decided instead of talking about a bad video game adaptation, let's talk about a good one. We're gonna talk about Fallout, which is the show, of course, that came out on Amazon Prime at the around March of this year, March or April.
Mhm.
And it stars Ella Purnell, and a bunch of other really talented actors in that show. And so yeah, so let's talk about Fallout. So what because you've played the Fallout games. Have you played Fallout before the games?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to touch on, just as a precursor, so people would know where we come from.
Mhm.
I think I've played every Fallout game there has been, except for 76, which is like the multiplayer like MMO like one.
Mhm.
Um, but I played all of the single I love Fallout New Vegas specifically. That was a game that was very I played it earlier on into my teenage years. It was very formative for me. And so I don't necessarily love Fallout, but like it's all very familiar to me, and especially that game specifically
Mhm.
very deserty. And so the key components of Fallout, a desolate world, like a futuristic 1950s era mixed with like 1950s music just brought up to today. That's a huge thing to the series as a whole. All of it is very recognizable to me, and I think we'll go into how the show handles it. But those are some of my components. How about you? Were you familiar with Fallout before the show at all?
So I have never played a Fallout game
Okay.
or um yeah, I didn't even heard of the series until the movie came out. I was one of those, I'll describe him as like a Nintendo baby. So like
hmm
all my video game knowledge and lore came from Nintendo. I've only played like I had a Game Boy Advance for the longest time. So any
hmm
games that came out on Nintendo, I played. And then eventually I got a GameCube, and then from there we
hmm
got a Wii. But like my house has always been like I've never owned a PlayStation or like I
hmm
have a PS3 now. When
hmm
I was a teenager, I got a PS3. But I still have that same PS3 that I got. Like I've never gotten like a PS4 or anything like that.
Right. Right.
I think the only Xbox I had was that really old one where we used to play like one of the first Halos
Yes,
on my
we would
big
play.
massive TV that I had in my room.
Oh, oh,
Oh, good
it
times.
was the best. It was the
Yeah.
best. Yeah,
Uh,
whenever we would hang out, it would be like when we played games, it would either be Super Smash Brothers,
oh yeah.
for a short period of time, Fire Emblem Awakening that we would play,
Yep.
and then um and then Halo. Like those
Yeah.
were the three like main game, but it was mostly Smash Brothers or Halo
And
that
like
we would
I
play.
the main reason why I got the PS3 too was so I could play like Marvel versus Capcom. So I played that a lot and I loved the
Mm,
version on the Xbox. Oh, that was Marvel vs. Capcom
yeah.
2 that had Venom in it. And the music soundtrack on it was so good. Man, we could do a whole episode just talking about
So
that.
I want
So
to take it
good.
for a ride.
Yep, yep.
They're remastering that game
Oh my
specifically and
God,
bringing it to
really?
the Switch.
Bro, I'm about to die
We're
right now.
you and I
Oh
are
my
gonna
God.
lose
Oh my
hours of
God.
sleep playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 again.
Oh my gosh. That is like literally the best news I've heard in a
I'll
very
give
long
I'll
time.
give you more details like after
Oh,
this.
I'm gonna like hyperventilate. That's amazing. That's like a dream come true. That's the kind of
Yes,
thing that
it,
like you wish for, but like you didn't realize that you had wished for it and it just kind of manifests. Or
right.
like that's like a pipe dream. Oh God, that's
You don't
amazing.
hold out too much hope because otherwise it would crush
Hmm.
you every day that it doesn't come true. But then it
Right.
does come true, and it's suddenly like like tears swell in your eyes.
You're like,
You,
I didn't even know that this was a
I,
possibility. I
I
was
didn't know
too
I
afraid to
needed it.
want it because I didn't think it could happen.
Right.
Now it's happening.
You were too afraid to dream.
Too afraid to dream. So, anyway, so
Anyway,
yeah,
Fallout.
yeah, Fallout, yeah. So I was a Nintendo baby, so I didn't know
Mhm,
anything about Fallout or grow up with any of those games.
mhm.
So but for you, how do you feel like the accuracy of the TV? Because like there's a lot of games where some things that translate, like they won't translate well into live action. Like if you want to do Super Mario Bros, you can't do that story in live action. It just doesn't translate. It won't work. But it works really well in animation,
Mhm.
or it'll work really well in some other medium. Like there are some things that just you can't take from a video game element and put into a movie element because it can make that movie or project suffer. So how did you feel about the accuracy from the game translating to on screen? Like how did they do that? Did they make it
Yeah.
better?
I really loved it. I think there's this common tendency that it feels like with video game adaptations, whether it be a TV show or movie, that it feels like whoever's making it does not necessarily know the source material or feel like they understand why people like the source material. I don't think
Mhm.
you have to be the diehard fan to make a good adaptation of it, but I think you have to understand what's so appealing about it, what works for the game, and how, and like focusing on trying to translate that to to screen. And I think that they did a really good job at condensing and isolating the components of a Fallout game that people really love and gravitate towards and putting it on screen. Like the setting was perfect. The way that they built the towns with like old school buses being used as like now convenience stores or bridges in between two other stores. Everything feels so like shackles. Like everything feels so like destroyed and desolate, yet built on top of each other.
Mhm.
And then in between that is just like barren nothingness, which I feel like we've seen a lot on screen, but for this setting, it's like that's integral because there's nothing. It's supposed to be a nuclear fallout. Like there's no life whatsoever, and what life there is are these mutated homunculi of grotesque creatures that exist. And they capture that vibe perfect. Everyone, all the characters in it are very NPC coded. Like they're very like they have their one thing, they have like their one joke and their bit, and they're so off color and weird, and they're just kind of put in this random corner of the map. Like the guy who like had chickens. Like you didn't need to see any more screen time with him, but in that
Yeah.
like one scene briefly in that one area, totally. That's a character you would just find out exploring the wastes in a Fallout game, and then like you move on from him and it's done, but you remember it as like a weird, a quirky interaction. And I
Mhm.
think they captured those feelings, put them to screen well. The set design, like having the old, like the futuristic 50s cars that are now like broken down and destroyed. They looked great. Like I thought, like the set design, it didn't feel overly CGI. Like it felt more tangible. Like obviously there was CGI here, but the sets felt real, and it was great. The music was like perfect. It was exactly the kind of thing that you would want. I would say the biggest thing that didn't feel necessarily as connected to the game were all the like flashback sequences, just because that's never been a component of the games before. But I thought they worked for like adapting a television show because it helped flesh out this centralized drama that you're following, and it gives you at a look at this world outside of the desolation, and it makes it feel all the more real that it is
Mhm.
destroyed when you get to see it kind of thriving, as a compare and contrast. And so yeah, I think it works really, really, really well.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting how like we don't really think about how much George Miller did for the apocalyptic genre. Especially with it's very interesting how Furiosa came out this year, which is a
Mhm,
continuation of his Mad Max series. But we don't think about how much he did for the apocalyptic genre because
mhm,
again, Mad Max first came out in 1979, which was
mhm,
like one of the starts of the apocalyptic world,
mhm.
genres. And like you could say that
Yeah.
like maybe he was inspired a little bit by like the sandiness of Dune, but like he's from Australia, so I feel like he could have come up with that himself. Like
He
I
doesn't
feel
need
like it's not
Dune.
a hard,
Australia is
yeah.
pretty sandy
Yeah,
itself.
it's pretty. But like that came out in 1979, and the first Fallout game came out in 97, and you can see some of the parallels and some of the just what everything George Miller did from with for the apocalyptic genre. It makes me
Mhm.
even more like I guess sad isn't the right word, but like the fact that Furiosa didn't do so well at the box office, but yet all these projects, that have all been inspired by, partly what he did with Mad
Mhm.
Max and the apocalyptic genre, like I'm sure some of them, a lot of them realize it, but I don't think a lot of fans understand. Like even fans of Fallout probably don't know as much how much Mad Max may have influenced it and the weirdness. Like the fish, I didn't realize when the fish was eating it and like that its tongue was full of hands. I was like, what is this? This is
Yeah.
crazy. Like, but I mean, I guess that's this nuclear fallout. It
Yeah.
could happen.
It's so
Um,
funny you mentioned just real quick. It's so
mhm.
funny you mentioned Fallout or Mad Max influence. I believe it was either the first or second Fallout game. The main character's design was Road Warrior, was
Oh,
Mel
really? Okay.
Gibson's Road Warrior. So
Mhm.
like from the beginning, from the
Okay.
conception, it has worn like Mad Max influence on its sleeve. Like
Okay.
it is like, no, no, no. This is Mad Max the game in part.
Yeah. Because I feel like I could see that in the show. So,
Hmm.
but since I haven't played the games, I didn't know. I just kind of assumed that like it probably was.
Hmm.
Because again, it's one of the first apocalyptic films that became very successful and became very very accessible to everybody.
Right.
So yeah, that's really cool that it was confirmed. So like yeah, it
Hmm.
was stylized off of Road War, and I feel like the show captures that as well. And I'm glad that they weren't afraid to like shy away from that and afraid to acknowledge that like yeah, no, this is heavily inspired by some of the great apocalyptic genres. Like it's very hard to do
Right.
something and not feel like you're biting off of
Hmm.
it, but at the same time, like doing something that feels impactful. Like
Yeah.
had Dune come out before, because like the books Dune came out before Star Wars, but like had a
Yes.
Dune movie come out in the 70s before Star Wars, Star
Hmm.
Wars would have looked like it was biting off of Dune. The like
Hmm.
from the entire just like the way Rebel Moon looks like right now and how we're like
Hmm.
this is literally just
This
Zack
is
Snyder's
just Star
attempt at
Wars.
Star Wars.
This is your Star
Right.
Wars fanfic
Yeah.
put to
Right. This
screen.
is Star Wars fan fiction put to screen. Like there's no is completely derivative. There is no like unique you can't even say it's like inspired. It's like literally just and Zack Snyder said like this was my script for Star Wars. But again,
Right.
you watch it and it's like this feels like a poorly R-rated version of Star Wars. And it's like
Yeah.
if Dune had come out before Star Wars, we'd be saying the same thing about Star Wars, but to
Hmm.
Dune. Because even
Hmm.
the spice, like this, like there's so many elements that George Lucas just like plucked. But
Hmm.
we didn't know because there hadn't been a Dune movie. So it's just one of those things. It's like it's hard to create something new while also paying homage to or like acknowledging that like yeah no it was inspired by this but it's still its own project and that line can
Right.
be hard to balance, but the
Hmm.
creators of the Fallout game and the showrunners for the Fallout show did a fantastic job of allowing you to see how it's similar and not
Hmm.
being afraid to be inspired by something like that from Mad Max. Like this will appeal a lot to a lot of Mad Max fans, but at the
Hmm.
same time, being able to stand on its own and having its own narrative and having its own story, which I think is very, very impressive.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strong suits when it comes to not adapting something. Another trend that I think is really it never feels like it works out is trying to adapt the narrative of one specific game per se
Mm-hmm.
to a show, because it never feels like it works. The story and told through a movie would never be better than the story that you can experience for yourself, making your own choices. And so I love the decision to just capture, okay, we're going to capture the vibe of everything, maybe take a beat or two from previous stories that have been told, but we're going to run with our own thing. And they totally did. And I think that's the correct decision. If they
Mm-hmm.
were to straight up adapt, say, one of the numbered Fallouts or New Vegas or whatever, I think it would have been so much worse, because you could never capture the experience, especially for a game that touts open exploration and you
Mm-hmm.
crafting your own, like, personal stories within. That could never translate to a TV show or movie. But the vibe, the atmosphere, the energy, the world itself can still be there. And they took that and they ran with it. And the narrative feels very unique in that sense. And I think it's so much stronger for it, because I enjoyed the narrative that went through it. I loved the character performances that we got, like, in between. Like, Ella Purnell is really great as Lucy.
Fantastic. Yeah.
She's amazing in it. Walter Goggins is absolutely hilarious as the ghoul. Um, Aaron Moten, I don't know if I'm saying it, Moten, as Maximus, like, he was great. I don't think I've ever seen him before as an actor, but he did amazing as Maximus.
Mm-hmm.
And even like smaller characters like Kyle MacLachlan as Lucy's dad, not in it quite as much, but really loved when he was on
Yeah.
screen. He was very, very powerful and charming and captivating in all of the right ways.
Talking about the cast, yeah, they took a lot of characters from existing projects and kind of gave them like their own little new vein to shine at.
Hmm.
Like Moises Arias was a Disney Channel star, who was
Hmm.
in a couple of movies. There was one with Cole Sprouse that was like a really, really sad movie. Um,
Hmm.
but he played a great as Lucy's brother. He did a great job in his role. Um, Leslie Uggams, who
Hmm.
played Betty Pearson, who was a member of the council. You may recognize her as Blind Al from Deadpool and Wolverine. So
Oh
she was in
yeah,
this.
she
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Very cool to see her in this role because it's very different. If you've ever seen Miss Marvel, Sarita Chowdhury, she's actually been in a lot of stuff. She was in both of the Hunger Games Mockingjay, and she was in The Green Knight, but she was most recently in Miss Marvel as um the mother of the she was one of the why is the name escaping me? The clandestines from Miss Marvel
Oh,
who was trying to
okay.
help who wanted to get back to her world. So that was her most
Gotcha.
recent project besides this one. And so yeah, brought in a lot of really good and got a lot of really good performances. Who
Hmm.
was the kid? Um that kid who was oh yeah, Johnny Pemberton who played Thaddeus. Um I
Oh
know him
yeah.
from Superstore.
Superstore. Yeah.
And
It felt
he
so weird to see.
I know. And he plays the same kind of role. I
Yeah.
feel like he was just kind of being himself. Like I feel like that was one of the few characters that I was like, okay, he's doing the same role in this one because everyone else that I had seen in other stuff, I feel like was doing different roles. But this was pretty on brand for him. Um,
Right.
but like you were mentioning, how it's hard to like adapt an exact storyline.
Hmm.
Like with Halo, the TV show on Paramount Plus, I feel
Hmm.
like the reason why a lot of people like it's been canceled now. Only made it to two
And quite
seasons.
universally hated.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because like critically and fans, they hated the first season. The second
Uh-huh.
season got a lot of critical acclaim, but the fans still were like, not really.
No.
And I think that's because the whole storyline of Halo in the TV show, since they didn't really know like what storyline to adapt, it just kind of became shoot everything.
Oh yeah.
And any plot that they had in between it was very flimsy and didn't hold up. So if they weren't
Hmm.
shooting anything, nothing was happening. And it's just like
Right.
I mean, like action is great, but like I can only watch something being shot so many
so
times.
many times.
Yeah, and like I also don't know the whole story behind Halo because like I don't even know if we ever played the gameplay when we did
We
Halo. I
just played
think we
multiplayer.
just
We just played
played
local
multiplayer.
multiplayer.
Yeah, and you would just kill us all every single second. We'd just be like, "Oh, headshot by Ty again. Oh, what a
Yeah.
surprise!" Um, because we were all terrible at first person
We
shooters.
were so bad.
But like, and then again, another video game adaptation, Sonic
Mhm.
the Hedgehog 2, like completely different genre shift. Um,
Sure.
but the way that it adapted specific storylines from Sonic Adventure 2, or the game, actually
Mhm.
worked really well. Like having Knuckles as the antagonist. They
Mhm.
didn't shoot, they did a good job of not shooting too far, like not bringing in too many characters. It's like we just did Sonic, let's just do Knuckles and Tails. Like that's enough.
Mhm.
Like, they did a good job of keeping it not going too far with all the characters. And like you said, the scene where they're coming down the mountain was a snowboarding scene straight from the game. The scene where
Mhm.
Sonic's running through the temple is straight from the game. And I don't know if was them all teaming up to fight Eggman part of that game, because like that game I never actually played. I didn't get in till for most of the games like Knuckles was an ally, because most of the games I started playing came out in like the 2000s. I didn't play most of like the older 90 ones. But do you remember, did they all team up to fight Eggman at the end of that game, or was that just like a movie thing?
Uh, it's been a little bit since I've seen it, so
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with the specifics, and
Hmm.
I'm not like the big. I don't have like that great of a Sonic memory, so
Yeah.
I think it might have been just for the movie, if my
Okay.
memory serves, but
And that makes sense because again, the movie was pretty much for kids, and those kids aren't gonna know, like, hey, they didn't fight Eggman with the Master Emerald at the end, like,
but
you
it
know,
right.
but it's still like for a lot of
But
those kids,
it captured the energy of it though,
right?
like friendship.
And right, and for a lot of those kids, their parents, some of them played that Sonic game because they're all
Mhm.
grown up now, they're our
Mhm.
age. And and for those of us that don't have kids but played those games and remember Sonic and kind of want to see it on the big screen, it still appealed to us. So they did a really great job balancing it. And
Mhm.
it's amazing because that series started off so terribly with all that
Mhm.
backlash over the first image of Sonic. um and
Oh.
I think that's like the best example of like listening to fans
Mhm.
and a studio like reacting to it. And I think that's one of the first times it's ever happened.
Mhm.
Um, because again, that Sonic looked horrible and everybody was saying it. And Paramount was like, maybe we should do something different. Because a lot of
Mhm.
studios would have been like, it's going to be a sunk cost, just release it anyway. But they
Mhm.
changed it. And now they're well on their way to their third one. Now, the
And
Knuckles,
we never would have had uh John Wick as Shadow the Hedgehog
oh my
if it
God.
weren't for them changing
Yes. They were
changing
changing that, yes.
the
And
design.
it's so amazing because literally in Sonic, the first one, Sonic literally quotes Keanu Reeves and he's like, "You're a national treasure." And it's like now he's playing Shadow. And it's like, how did this even happen?
It's so
Oh,
great.
and it's also really funny because Idris Elba and Keanu Reeves also, I can't remember what game, but they actually voiced video game characters in a video game. So like this is like
Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk. Yes, yes, exactly. So yeah, all of that, yeah, and all of that's just because they listen to the fans, and also because Jim Carrey is absolutely incredible, and this is the perfect thing for him to end his legacy on. But
Right.
anyway, back to so that's another example of like a successful video game adaptation. Um, but with
And
Fallout, go
I
ahead.
think it was successful for very similar reasons.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
captured the energy and the vibe without necessarily straight adaptation. You can take
Right.
moments and like beats that are iconic, things that are iconic to show them here. You can make them integral to the story, but don't rest all your laurels on say just like fan service or just like references because
Mhm.
then I think you devolve into some of on the opposite end. This isn't a game adaptation, but like the worst of Star Wars is when it's just, hey, remember this thing? Hey,
Yeah.
remember this thing? Hey, remember this thing? And that's what I feel like a lot of video game adaptations could evolve into if you
Hmm.
don't use it carefully. And I feel like Fallout could have so easily just been, hey, remember that creature? Hey, remember that armor suit? Hey, remember that gun? Okay, give us your money now.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not
Shane.
that. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that it's not. It took it seriously enough without tempering the humor and like the inherent weirdness and quirkiness of the setting.
Yeah, and I think that's a power and I think that kind of goes into why Borderlands has failed so badly as well, because we're going to keep getting video game adaptations for a
Mm-hmm.
long time because studios are always they're going to look at these IPs that have sold hundreds of millions of copies, and they're going to want a piece of that. And also because like people had kind of stayed away from game adaptations for like a good I feel like it was a good 10-15 year period, and then they
Mm-hmm.
started coming back. And like while you have the misses like Assassin's Creed, which most people hated, there are so many hits that are at least commercially successful, like Detective Pikachu, and now Fallout that was actually critically successful. The studios are going to be like, we can do this. We just they're going to keep trying it until they find something that really works. But like with
Mm-hmm.
Borderlands, I feel like a lot of the criticism was like, because I've never played Borderlands and I haven't seen the movie yet. I was gonna try to see it in theaters because I was like, I like Kevin Hart. But I might just wait till it comes out on streaming based upon all the reviews. I'm not sure if it deserves money. But basically, from what I hear, they kind of tried to like rein in the weirdness, right? But like it's
Yeah.
still really weird of a game and the craziness. So like when they tried to like rein it in to make it work in a movie, it still had like a weirdness to it, but it wasn't enough to feel authentic. So then it just kind of feels weird. So a lot of people are saying like they definitely don't want a second one. Some people are saying like if they just kind of lean into more what the game is actually about. Like I just did a project for it, and like one of the lines is, I have the shiniest meat grinder. I have
Mm-hmm.
no idea what that means.
What does that mean?
What is
Yeah.
that even? But like again, it feels like they kind of tried to like rein that in, and that's been like one of the most significant criticisms that like they reined in the weirdness, and now it just doesn't feel authentic. So any weird elements that are in this movie
Mm-hmm.
just they feel weird. They stick out because you tried to rein it all in instead of just showing this like a natural part. And like Fallout did a good job of making the weirdness just reality. Like, yes, there are creatures that have hands on their tongues.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably weirder than anything I've seen in a Borderlands trailer, right? But it
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel out of place. I was like, what is that? Like, oh, I really wish I wasn't eating lunch while I was watching this. Sure. Um,
Right.
but it still felt like it was a natural part of the world.
Right.
Um, and one question I have, so like, because you've played the game, so like the storyline about the company creating these kind of shelters, vaults, and how like the idea that like there was a conspiracy to kind of create
Oh yeah.
nuclear war, that way like
Mhm.
this company could profit off of it and create these vaults. Was that heavily explored in the game? Because to me, that was the most interesting and intriguing part of the storyline for me watching it as someone who's never played Fallout.
So I guess just spoilers for games
Oh,
or the show.
yeah. Sorry,
Um
guys.
real quick. So that plot point, I don't remember if that specifically that the Vault Tech company was also manufacturing the war itself. I don't know if that specific plot point was in a game before because I don't remember everything. But for sure, the vaults were built as experiments, and that's something common to the game. You'll find them throughout every map, and you'll go and you'll start exploring it, and inside you'll learn like what the thing was. So like one vault was about growing like this kind of plant, this certain kind of, I can't remember if it's like if it's like an intelligent plant or what it is, but then it overtakes the vault. And so when you enter it, it's just like vines and shrubbery and like ferns all growing inside, and everyone's dead.
Mm.
One is all about like just a group of scientists like isolated from like the rest of the world doing research. And then you'll have one, so like having some like in the show where it's uh like this other vault that's kind of like controlling these other two vaults into like fighting for control. That is totally within the realm of plausibility for the show. I just don't know if Vault-Tec specifically had a hand in creating the
Okay.
nuclear war to begin with. However, it fits so thematically with the show because, or with the game, because everything, it's very anti-corporation,
Oh yeah.
like thematically within the games. Like Vault-Tec was never even just ambiguous. It was always very clearly, you are like comic book evil
Hmm.
of people here. And
Yeah.
so while it may not be directly adapted, it totally fits the vibe. And maybe I kind of hope it wasn't, because then that's a great choice for the creators of the show.
Yeah, no,
And
I
they
think that
adapted it
was.
really well, that
Hmm.
kept in line with the themes and the energy that the games have.
And I feel like that really appeals to non-game players like me, who,
Mhm.
like, I'm interested in the show, probably not gonna go buy every copy of Fallout and play it so I can like really understand it and be like, oh, there's
Mhm.
that thing. But
Mhm.
I feel like that storyline really, I kept wanting to go back to that and wanting to see him uncover more about that. And so if that's something that they added, that is a beautiful example of adding something that will appeal to the non-game gamers, that will
Mhm.
keep them interested and invested in the show.
Mhm.
I still I've mentioned this before. I still find it hilarious how like games and media and stuff created by that's like funded by corporations like love making storylines that are anti-corporation, and like
Yeah.
they still profit off of it. It's like, oh yes, yeah, sure, be anti-corporation. That'll
Right.
be 13
Sure.
bucks, please.
You're right.
Like you're
You
still
still
like
made
giving
me a
money.
billionaire.
Yeah, by watching this. Like it's not like Amazon Prime, who released the show, isn't a corporation, but hey,
Right.
that's
Jeff
fine.
Bezos is still, he could be retired all he wants. He's still
Right.
on the top of
He's like,
that
oh
throne,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Like,
Fall. I hate corporations. Yeah. Anyway, how many subscribers do we have now? Like, you know,
yeah.
I just the irony still
Oh
gets
my
me
God.
every
You're
time.
so right. Because this is like a big push for Amazon Prime as a streaming service as well, of like, come check out our streaming service.
Come check out Fallout. You
Take
hate
out your
corporations? So
frustrations with
do we.
corporations.
Yeah, we hate corporations just like you. Just pay us $14 a month and you can watch this show and enjoy how much you hate corporations. It's truly it's one of the funnier things in life.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. Yeah.
But yeah, so I love I really do love that storyline, and I think like I said, I haven't seen Borderlands and I haven't played the games. I
Mhm.
think there's probably a way they could do better with the sequel. But like again, Halo season 1 compared to season 2, people found that the storylines that they were doing in season 1 were just too out there. So they kind of season 2, I see how they like rounded it more and made it more action. Like Halo season 1, it kind of felt like you had to sit through a lot of slog and crap to get to the action. And season
Mhm.
2 was like, here's the action, and then there's just some slog because like we can't just have the characters not do anything besides not action. Like there can't just
Right.
be action every single scene.
Right.
Um, but it still ended up getting canceled because the first one was just, I feel like the stink of the first one was just too, like if it had been reversed, if season 2 had been season 1, like maybe
Mhm.
it would have been able to continue because I'm like, okay, season 2 is bad. Let's get back to our
But let's
basics
get
here
back
with
to the
season 3.
roots or
Yeah,
something.
but it's too late because it's like nobody was there for season 2. So it's like the few,
Yeah.
like the 3 people that saw it were like, oh, it was good. And it's like, well, thanks, guys. But no one else
Okay.
bothered to
You
watch
can,
it.
no one's taking it away from you.
Yeah. So like you said, like I said, I'm not, and I also think Fallout is a game that people are very invested in and they really love it, but it doesn't have the emotional investment as some other games like Legend of Zelda. Wes Ball is going to be directing it after he just did Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And there's a lot of trepidation because I don't think there is a video game franchise that has as much emotional investment into it. Like my
Hmm.
sister-in-law is a huge Legend of Zelda fan. So is her best friend. So is my brother.
Hmm.
I haven't played that many Legend of Zelda games, and I feel bad saying it, but I've played, like games on like Link to the Past on my Game Boy like 6 or 7 times over and over again, and so that world is like it's even very special to me as someone who's only played one game like over and over again. I want to see them do it right. So like imagine someone who's bought and played every single game, and a lot of those fans are. So I think Wes Ball, I think, probably has the most challenging task out of any other video game adapter director because
Yeah.
most of them, again, you have a character who is people are emotionally invested in. Like, people were connected to Mario and Peach, but like it's completely different with Legend of Zelda. Like Zelda is a role model for a lot of people. Link is a role model for a lot of people. It is very, very deep and very, very important. And I think this
Mhm.
will like it has the chance to like make or break the video game adaptation industry, I think. Because like it's just that, like you said, it's not the most popular franchise, but it's definitely the most invested one that people are in. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes away with that.
Yeah, I would not want to be West Ball here because like I'm envisioning a future, whether it's good or like I feel like it's going to be another. Oh, what's the director? I'm forgetting his name, who directed Star Wars Episode 8 that everyone hated.
Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson. Like,
Hmm.
I imagine this is gonna, there's so much pressure on this adaptation that
Hmm.
whether you do it good or bad, it's never gonna please anyone. Myself included, I think from inception, it not being animated already sets me up to not like this movie. And it's not fair to him, but it's just I'm one of those people that have always had a Legend is their idea of a Zelda movie in their head since they were a kid because every one of us Zelda fans have always had an idea of what a live or a on-screen portrayal of a Zelda story would be like,
Hmm.
and I just don't see any way in which you're fulfilling that for everybody. And so
Yeah.
he's a brave man for taking this on.
The one thing I can say that I am encouraged by with Wes Ball taking this on, is first of all, after watching Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, while how I
Mhm.
mentioned that I was like, this is a little slow. Like at the very beginning, I'm like, I feel like you could have just skipped to this part where he was kidnapped and
Mhm.
was like with all the other monkeys and Proximus
Mhm.
Caesar. Like while that kind of felt like it slowed down the movie for me, that would be perfect for the Legend of Zelda movie because he spent a lot of time world building. I thought he
Mhm.
spent too much time world building in Kingdom of the Planet of
Mhm.
the Apes, but with Legend of Zelda, you cannot spend too much time world building because that's a huge,
Mhm.
massive element of it. And he made sure there were a lot of really beautiful cinematic shots, seeing like, the grass overtake those buildings and everything. And so if
Mhm.
he does a lot of that with Hyrule, again, make sure that we build the world. Like that should be his number one priority. I would say even above action. Like I'm an action guy, but if I go into this movie and there's a lot of action, I'm going to be like, oh, he didn't listen to the Zelda fans because
Mhm.
the Zelda fans are going to want world building. That's what they're going to want.
Mhm.
And he's also been working in very close proximity with the creator of Zelda.
Mhm.
Like apparently that's who's been helping him with this movie and everything, and like write the script. And we're still a long way from it even being like at
It
principal
was
photography stage.
it was just announced the end of last year, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're still so like that collaboration with him, I think helps. I think my biggest thing is like Wes Ball, like don't be afraid to leave the project if the executives are wanting you to do something that Zelda fans don't want. So first of all, get in touch with Zelda fans, like make a fake profile or something and just like find out what they're saying on
Hit me up,
internet boards
Westball.
and stuff.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll tell you some
Go
ideas.
talk to them. Don't worry. I think with Legend of Zelda, like again with Fallout, they kind of needed to make it appeal to like video game players and non-video game players. I think in this case, you just need to focus on Legend of Zelda fans because it's so
Mhm.
emotionally invested. Like if they like it, you'll make your budget back if they like
They
it.
will.
Like
We
you
will
don't have to
see it
worry about it.
10
Yeah. They
times.
will see it multiple. We will see it multiple times. These are the only people that you need to please and impress because if they don't like it, it will destroy your whole movie and nobody will like it. But if they
Mhm.
do, it will be survived. Even if you feel like it doesn't appeal to people that haven't played it, doesn't matter. Don't worry about them. Just appeal to the people that have played it. Cause like I agree, like there's even like a little cutscene in Super Smash Bros. Where Link is fighting Pit, and it looks so cool. And I love it. It's one of my favorite cutscenes. It's like introducing Pit into the Super Smash Bros. World, and it's like a tiny,
Mhm.
like little 5 minute clip.
Mhm.
I think it's introducing Palutena when they introduced
Mhm.
Palutena in the fourth Smash. But it was like, man, a Link series would look really good in animation.
Mhm.
And so that's what I kind of feel like I would love to see like I still would love to see like a Legend of Zelda live action movie, but I would love to see a studio like animated like Studio Ghibli or
Mhm.
something else make like an anime from Legend of Zelda. Give me a series, a whole series of animated Legend of Zelda, and I think that will hit like you know you're saying like I would love to see like an animated movie, and I'm like, why not both? Like the
Mhm.
little chick with the tacos, like we could have both. But I
Mhm.
think I would much rather, like if I had to choose, I would rather see an animated series. Like I don't think I'd
Yeah.
want to see a live action series, but I'd
No.
want to see an animated series more than I'd want an animated movie. And I feel
Yeah.
like one of the very basic elements in a live action movie is Link gonna talk? And the answer should be no. But studio executives are probably going to be like, you can't just have your main character not talk. And if you're
Mhm.
Wes Ball, again, yes, you can. And you have to if you want them because he doesn't talk in the games. He doesn't. So you got
Mhm.
to find a way to craft a character that can still convey a lot of things. And again, it's not like he's mute or anything like that. He just doesn't. So you have
Well,
to
it's
find a way where like it doesn't need to even be addressed, you know.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. In some games, it is like
Oh, is it?
in Breath of the Wild, it's like a it's like a trauma response
Oh,
because he failed. I guess spoilers for Breath of the Wild
yeah.
because
Sorry,
he
guys.
failed 100 years in the past. He doesn't talk anymore
Oh, okay.
in the present day. And so, like, do you go the route of explaining? Or do you go the route of just it's just a thing and we all accept it? And
Of his
then if
focus, yeah.
so, what kind of Zelda do you adapt? Do you adapt like the original Zelda? Do you adapt Breath of the
Hmm.
Wild? Ocarina of Time is probably the most iconic. Do you go for the moodier Twilight Princess? Like which era are you adapting? Are you adapting a specific game? Are you adapting your own story? And if so, where does it fit in with the vibe of it all? What kind
Yeah.
of Link and Zelda? There's so much.
There's so
There's
much
so much
lore to choose
room.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if anything, that could be like a saving grace to it. So if he goes for example, the Twilight Princess route,
Hmm.
we could still collectively get an animated series based on the Ocarina of Time
Yeah,
or something
exactly.
like that.
There's a lot of
If
storylines that you can do. And like I said,
and
you can do like an animated series, and each season could be a different game. Like season one
mhm,
could be Ocarina of Time, and they just don't really tell you that it's Ocarina of Time. Season
mhm,
two could be Twilight Princess. Season three could be Breath of the Wild. Season four could be A Link to the Past or something like that. Or what's the
mhm.
latest one that came out?
Tears
It
of the
was
Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, that could be like season four or five. So
Mhm,
um yeah, I've seen a lot of fan castings for I think the most popular fan casting is Anya Taylor-Joy as Zelda, which
mhm,
I think would work really well. I'm just like I don't know if she'd want to after just playing Peach. I don't know if she'd feel like I don't want to do two Nintendo princesses, but I mean, I feel like she
mhm,
could. Either way, I don't think it would be
mhm.
um weird or anything. I think it's just I have no idea what actor I would choose to play Link because he's gonna have to that's gonna be an Oscar level performance that he's gonna have to give, and he's got to be young enough, like young looking enough to do it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that will be very interesting to see as it all kind of comes together. I have high hopes for it. But like I said, with projects like you said, you've got Fallout, and like it turns out
Mm.
great, and then you've
And you've
got
got Borderlands.
Borderlands, where it literally Borderlands has grossed. So just for reference, Cuckoo, a independent horror film, has grossed $100 million on a $10 million budget, 10 times its amount, filled with actors that you don't really know, that are kind of appeared in like little random things.
Mhm.
Borderlands has A-list stars like Kevin Hart, Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, actors with 20 plus year careers. Ariana Greenblatt, who's coming off of Barbie,
Mhm.
Florian Manchu, who's coming on, I think I said the last name right, but he's coming off of Shang-Chi and Creed. He was just in Creed 3. And
Mhm.
Jack Black, another actor with 20 plus year career. So all these iconic actors, it grossed 20 million on $120 million budget. And like that's enough to just sink the entire Borderlands. Like I know I said like there's possibility for them doing a second one and making it better, but no studio
Mhm.
was going to invest money in it after it bombed that badly. There's just
Mhm.
no way. There's just no way. So like that's kind of like kind of feels like you have two options to go here with your Legend of Zelda adaptation. There's like horrendous failure, and then there's critical commercial success. So I guess we'll see how other video game adaptations come. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 will be coming out this year, which will be, looks like it'll be pretty good. Like if they keep doing what they've been doing in the first two ones, it'll be fine. It hasn't been like a firecracker at the box office, but it's done enough to make a profit and recoup its budget. So um,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. And then oh yeah, because like in other news,
Yeah.
like speaking of canceled things, sorry, I forgot to mention the Acolyte was just canceled at the
Mhm.
end of season two, at the end of season one. So like Halo made it to the Acolyte is obviously not a video game adaptation. But like we were talking about Star Wars a little bit and projects that got canceled and like how Halo got canceled after season two. And so with all the backlash on everything, um the Acolyte ended up being canceled. And I think this was another one of those situations where, the streaming numbers didn't reflect enough for them to renew it.
Mhm.
And they had a storyline ready to go for season two that, I wanted to see how it was going to play out. I was more on the term of I hope they fix some of the mistakes that they made in the first season with the second
Mhm.
season.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of like that's exactly how I felt about Eternals. Like Eternals 2, like we're probably never gonna get it. That's what everyone said. And I don't think we're ever
Yeah.
gonna get Black Knight or any of that storyline to continue. And the first
Mhm.
Eternals was not a good movie. Like it had some very serious flaws in it, but it also had some elements in it that made me like, okay, can you guys just fix these errors that you made in the second one? Like I don't necessarily not want to see a second one. I just want to see you fix the errors. That's how I felt about the Acolyte. Like I want you to fix some of the errors. But it either Disney decided that it wasn't enough to fix them or something else, and it just ended up being canceled.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting topic of discussion for a long period of time. Um, I feel like the sad part is like you can't really make your Star Wars fan base happy because it's like
No.
again canceling a project isn't going to get them excited because you just you canceled it. Like they're
Right.
probably glad that you canceled it, but they're not excited. You know what I mean? It
Right. It's it's like, did that really make room for anything, or is it just one less thing that you're getting?
Yeah, it just feels like you're trying to get back in their good graces, which is understandable, and you kind of need to because that's your fan base that
It
does
just
pay you
must not have
money.
it just must not have performed well enough for whatever metric they were shooting for. I
Yeah.
hope we do get like I hope we get where they were wanting to go with everything, because
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I liked the Acolyte. I really enjoyed it more than I was expecting I would for something. modern Star Warsy, but it's a shame that it doesn't get to
Continue.
really expand on some of the things that didn't quite land for me.
Yeah, and like I said, kind of exactly. Like I didn't feel like it was amazing, but I didn't feel like it was so bad that you couldn't just go in there for a season 2 storyline and, fix it. Like Obi-Wan, when that first season ended, like I would not have
Mhm,
wanted to see an Obi-Wan season 2. The plot
mhm,
holes just drove me too crazy, and I could
mhm,
not stand it. I cannot see another fight with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader where he
mhm.
wins and just leaves him alive in the prequel. It's just too much. Too much. I cannot go through it. So like that was a show that's like I don't even need a season 2. I feel like that shouldn't have happened. And I'm like, to
Mhm.
me the Acolyte just feels like you made some mistakes that you shouldn't have made, and in the season, like the second season, you could have cleared those up. Like I felt like it wasn't so rotten that you had to throw the whole thing out. To me,
Right,
I think it needed some, like you needed to, slice off some of the rotten pieces and like fix some things, fix some dialogue, fix some character development, fix some of the writing issues that were going on. But I don't think that you didn't have anything to build off of. But again,
right,
I think based upon the fan base, I mean, this is the fan base that you have, and if you want them to keep giving you money to make more Star Wars content, you kind of got to do what they were asking for. And so this is
right.
what I think well, I won't say most Star Wars fans, I'll say like the loudest Star Wars fans were asking for.
Yeah.
So that's what this is going to end up doing. So yeah, hopefully other projects don't suffer that same fate. Like, when we get, hopefully Legend of Zelda will be like an excellent movie and it'll, continue to build on like Sonic the Hedgehog has been able to, and obviously the Super Mario Bros is going to have a second one coming out eventually.
Yeah.
But only time will tell. So in the meantime, I know we talked about a lot of different things today, um
Mhm.
but primarily let us know your thoughts for Fallout,
Yeah.
what you thought of it, and any other video game adaptation, really, what you thought of it. If you saw Borderlands, what you thought of it, Super Mario Bros, Sonic the Hedgehog, Detective Pikachu, Assassin's Creed. If you have any other thoughts on video game adaptations,
Were
Halo.
you were you a fan of the series? Did you come in fresh? Like, how did
Mhm.
it hit for you? Let us know.
Yeah, drop them down below, and yeah, and if you think the Acolyte should or shouldn't have been canceled, let us know. If you are excited or not excited for the Legend of Zelda movie coming out, let us know. um and yeah, and we will see you guys next time.
Until then.